Welcome, everyone, to Big Fight Breakdown, as we have had a weekend to marinate over the tremendous fight card that we had here Friday night here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I'm George DeMatteis, filling in for Jimmy Smith, who is on a well-deserved vacation. And we got the champs in the building. We have Chris Algieri here in studio, and joining us is Paulie Malignaggi as well. Let's talk about the fights on Friday, beginning with that main event. Lamont Roach Jr. getting that 8th-round stoppage over Fergal McCrory. Chris, what were your thoughts on that fight?
I mean, listen, it was great. It was a championship boxing event. It felt like one, too, which is very cool. So bringing a championship fight to D.C. was great. You know, a lot of local flavor on the card. Lamont Roach obviously headlining. He had a bunch of his stablemates all along the card. Some guys making their pro debuts. Some real talent coming out of D.C., which is no surprise. I mean, I think they're following the footsteps of Gervonta Tank Davis. And, yeah, I think the next crop of good American fighters are going to be coming out of that group right there. But in terms of the fight itself, in terms of what Lamont Roach went out there to do, he did what he said he was going to do. He said he was going to go out there, he was going to show his power, he was going to get the knockout. He had a very, very tough guy in front of him. Fergal McCrory, you know, everything that we said about Fergal came to be true. He was super tough. He was very dedicated, tons of heart, brought it, but it's just different levels to this game. And Lamont was just on a different level that night, and he really, really was looking for that knockout in front of his hometown fans, and he went for it. He went for it over and over and over again. I think he dropped Fergal 3 or 4 times. A couple shots to the body, some shots upstairs. I believe the corner mercifully stopped it. Fergal was taking a ton of damage, wanted to keep going, but just didn't have enough game to stay with Lamont Roach as the fight wore on.
Yeah, 2 body shots went down McCrory, and he still got up, so he is very tough. By the way,
he came back for a couple rounds.
Yeah.
So he actually fought well for the next 2 rounds after going down initially from those body shots. That shows the championship heart from McCrory.
By the way, DMV fighters were undefeated between the prelims and the TV card on Friday Night Fights. All right, Paulie, what were your thoughts on that fight and Lamont Roach's performance against McCrory?
Yeah, you know what? Like echoing the sentiments of the championship boxing returns at DC. Lamont Roach, listen, the opponent is undefeated. I know he's not a big name. Fergal McCrory was sort of a newcomer to the scene, undefeated. Was hungry, looking for the championship of the world in his first shot at it. Lamont Roach sort of welcomed him to big time boxing. For me, the reputation of the opponent aside, it's still an undefeated guy. It's still a guy who's hungry. And Lamont Roach, maybe a career best performance, really a very complete performance, and got the stoppage as well. But dominated, really took the aggressive nature of Fergal McCrory and made him work against him. Really impeccable shot selection, and of course that shot selection included the body punching that eventually led to the end of the fight. Really great performance by Lamont Roach, and an overall really good card, fun card. And good to see big-time boxing back in D.C. The champ mentioned Gervonta Davis. Also, I remember Lamont Peterson and so on and so forth. So it's nice for to have a guy like Lamont Roach sort of continue that legacy of D.C. boxing and bring that high-level championship shows back there through ProBox TV.
So what did Lamont Roach show you, Chris, when you consider first title defense at home? What did he show you in that fight that suggests that he can continue to have a good future?
My biggest takeaway from Lamont's performance was his focus. He was very dedicated. You know, if you look at him, you look at his eyes, you know, when he was staring across the ring, he was dead focused on what the game plan was. You know, he was going in there to perform, to do damage, to hurt his man. He's known as a boxer. He's known as a sharp counterpuncher, not really known as a seek and destroy type of guy. And he showed aspects of that he can do there. He can sit down. He can roll his shoulders. He can put nasty combinations together, and he did. He showed his power. We interviewed him multiple times leading up to this fight, and he kept saying, he's like, man, I hit harder than people give me credit for. Don't just look at the numbers on my record. I can punch. I've hurt everybody I've fought, and I'm going to show everybody that night. And he certainly did. I mean, he showed improved power. Champ, you mentioned his punch selection. I agree. He varied up his punches very well. You know, we know him as a counter left hooker upstairs. He got a very good left hook upstairs, but he showed a good left hook downstairs. He throws some good body shots with the right hand. You know, got rid of the jab that night. Didn't really need it. You know, he had a guy who was coming in the front door quite a bit and trying to bully him as much as he could. And Lamont was really looking to make a statement and use his power. But really, for me, my biggest takeaway was that he had a game plan. He went out there, he executed, and he stayed focused throughout.
Paulie, what do you make of how Lamont Roach looked? Because he had a lot of distractions. I mentioned first title defense. He's at home in front of his hometown fans. His brother winning, his younger brother winning on the pro debut, so that might have added a little bit of pressure. How did he look to you?
Oh, and by the way, I'm a champ. I know you weren't there. Lamont was out watching all of his stablemates fight ringside. Yep. Before his own fight.
Thing, man. It sort of had that family atmosphere, right? I mean, you know, he really took it to heart that he's bringing DC Championship Boxing back. He wanted to help his stablemates. The fact that you're telling me he was out there in the undercard and watching his opposition, not his opposition, but his stablemates and the kids that sort of look up to him, the younger guys that sort of look up to him as well, to give them that motivation as he's out there cheering them on, despite the fact that he's focusing on his own fight that night. And then the performance. I mean, listen, it was big for Lamont Roach. It was also big for DC Boxing. It was big for, you know, just in general, because the 130-pound division right now sort of needs that star attraction. We were talking about before how a guy like Noah Inoue is sort of gravitating around these lower weight classes. So you need to sort of have the performance to attract a guy like that, because he's not just looking for belts; he's looking for big fights in general. Lamont Roach really, I think, cemented himself as a guy to watch in the 130-pound division. I know it's just one defense, and I know McCrory's not a big name, but it's still an undefeated guy who's hungry. And Lamont Roach really picked him apart in devastating fashion, you know, and also the fact, you know, he also showed he can fight a southpaw. I know, Champ, you mentioned he didn't throw a lot of jabs. Sometimes when it comes to fighting southpaws, guys lessen their jab a little bit. We noticed that with Lamont in this fight, but certainly the shot selection was there, upstairs, downstairs. You mentioned that check hook. I think he got a knockdown on one of the check hooks he threw. He just used Fergal's aggressiveness against him and made it work against him.
It seems to me like he talked about the power, but the boxing IQ is super high with Lamont Roach, especially when you consider how he fought that fight against McCrory.
Yeah, and that's kind of his MO. We knew that. We knew his boxing IQ was super high. He's got a big national amateur background, very, very well known in the amateur circuit coming up. And, you know, he's mentioned that himself, that he had a different route getting to where he's at now. And, you know, his ability to stay in the pocket, roll his shoulders, showed that he was very, very comfortable on the inside, even with a guy who wanted to be on the inside. And, yeah, I mean, I liked also, I forgot to mention this, you know, about his performance, was he was looking for big shots in those first couple of rounds, which were working. You know, he dropped Fergal a couple times with body shots. And then I mentioned Fergal came back, and I think it was around, after he got dropped in 4, 5, 6, Fergal came back. He started pressuring and bullying Lamont a bit, got him on the ropes. And then Lamont took the power off his punches and just started putting numbers together. And that's when Fergal was really out of sorts, because he could not deal with the combination punching and the punches over and over again. They weren't as big, but they were landing consistently, and that's really what broke Fergal down and why the corner was willing to step in at that time.
Certainly a bright future for Lamont Roach Jr. We're going to talk about that future coming up on Big Fight Breakdown on the other side.
The goal was to become a world champion and bring it home, defend the championship right here at home. But beyond that, you were looking to make a statement. Mission accomplished tonight?
Mission accomplished. And my next goal to conquer is unification. So any champion watching this, just know I'm on your ass.
I got to ask, though, what was that statement you were looking to make?
That I'm the best at 130, man. And I hope I showed it tonight, but I'm definitely going to show it when I unify.
So a strong statement there by Lamont Roach Jr., the WBA champion. WBC champion O'Shaquie Foster will be defending his title this weekend, coming up against Robson Conceição. That's not going to be easy. The Brazilian is a very tough fighter, former Olympic gold medalist. Anthony Cacace is the IBF champion, and Manuel Navarrete is the WBO champion, even though he just lost to Berinchik, but that was at 135, not at 130. Welcome back to Big Fight Breakdown as we take a look back at Friday night fights here on ProBox TV. All right, Paulie, let me ask you heard what Lamont Roach said. Who should he fight next? What's next for him at the 130 weight class?
You know what? Unification is what he's mentioned. You know, you talk about unification. I think those are achievable fights, because nobody's really too big for their bridges in this weight class. There's still guys trying to make a name for themselves, get to a certain level. So I think those guys would probably be willing to fight Roach and try to make those unifications if you can get over the promotional barriers and all that other political stuff that happens in the sport. Nobody's a really huge name in this weight class. As a matter of fact, O'Shaquie Foster is really risking to lose the title this week. So, you know, if I'm Lamont Roach, I probably go up to Newark and present myself there and just start to become a presence. And that's part of your branding, right? You start to become a presence at these title fights in your weight class. Start to, let guys know you're interested without saying you're interested in those unifications, by showing up and getting that press and have people talking to you, do some interviews, sort of branding yourself a little bit. It's not a far drive up to Newark from DC, or if he wants to fly. Either way, I think if he's looking to unify and if he's looking to get these kind of fights, I think he's got to start presenting himself in person at these fights. And why not start this weekend?
Yeah, just wanted to add something real quick. I mentioned Anthony Kakachi. He's fighting Josh Warrington on the undercard of the Joshua Dubois fight on September 21st at Wembley Stadium. Just wanted to add that in there. All right, Chris, what's next? What's the future look like for Lamont Roach?
Yeah, just what the champ said. I mean, you know, he himself said he wanted to unify, and then obviously, you know, the things that Paulie was saying. But also, we should talk about some of the names that are not on that list. You got Oscar Valdez and Navarrete. That seems like that's going to be the next fight there. Oscar Valdez very well could win that fight.
Yeah.
Champ, you mentioned that the Conceição fight with Oshaki Foster very well could be a new champion this weekend with Conceição, who's been looking very, very good lately. Oshaki's is great, but you know he's been performing great, but he also looks vulnerable at times too, so he could certainly lose as well. Kakache is fighting Warrington. Warrington is a proven champion, a little long in the tooth at this point, but also that Joe Cordina rematch might be down the line too. So there's a lot of names that weren't on that list, and because of what you said, Champ, that this weight class, there's no standout guys. There's no one who's really at the top and can really hold their position. The landscape of this weight division could change very drastically very soon. So I think that Lamont's in a great position, kind of being the guy who's kind of established. He's the only one on there who's been able to defend his title at this point, other than Oshaki. So really, we got to see how things play out in the next few months. All these guys are kind of fighting around the same time. Lamont should make himself present, like you said, Champ. Show up at these fights. Go out there with his belt. Be like, hey, listen, I want the winner, because there's no guarantees in this weight class.
Right.
We don't have a guy who could be stand out. Lamont wants to be that guy, and he very much has the opportunity to do it. He's one of the better guys in the division, if not the best guy in the division. So he can actually go out there and be able to be one of those guys who's able to collect all these belts. And then, like you had said earlier, Champ, you got a guy like Inoue who's now starting to gravitate up towards these. You are a unified champion at 130. That Inoue fight makes a ton of sense now. Ooh, even if Lamont isn't the most well-known guy on a global stage, if he has all the belts, Inoue's going to target him.
He becomes more known if he grabs those.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah. And
even if there's no namesake guys for him to beat, he still has all the belts.
Exactly. And fight by fight, when you're grabbing them, if you grab them the old-fashioned way, where you grab them fight by fight, your name starts to really become recognizable.
When you're collecting heads of champions, people get to know who you are.
Bring the heads of the gates, like in 300. Well, and Paulie, to your point, Newark is close to DC.
Right there.
Right there. And this Saturday, it's Oshaki Foster and Conceição. So maybe would you advise him to be at that fight, 100%. To be a presence?
Yeah, as I was saying before, I think, going up to that fight, presenting yourself, doing some interviews, signing some autographs, just being the charismatic guy that you need to be and you can be is much easier to do when you have the belt. There's a bit more confidence there. Talk a little bit of trash, keep it cool, but talk a little bit of trash, let your presence be felt, and show up with the belt, man. Let these guys know.
And even if you're not a big trash talker, which I don't think Lamont really is, he's kind of a soft-spoken
he's a
guy.
Confident guy,
he's a very confident, right? But also, so you mentioned the word present. I think of it as omnipresent. Be everywhere. Be in everyone's rear view. Be there. Just be there. I think that really matters. You're kind of lying in wait. That's the kind of guy that I think of Lamont Roach. Yeah, all right, yeah, you got your win, Guess who's right there staring at you? It's this guy who wants your belt.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with Lamont Roach and all the fighters and all the belts at 130. All right, time for a quick break here on Big Fight Breakdown. We're going to talk about the co-main event featuring Lester Martinez and Carlos Góngora here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. Welcome back to Big Fight Breakdown here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. All right, we just talked about the main event at 130 with Lamont Roach Jr. defending his WBA championship. Now we're going to go down a card, but up a few pounds to talk about Lester Martinez, the hard-hitting Guatemalan, picking up a unanimous decision victory over the Ecuadorian Carlos Góngora. And Chris, what did you make of that fight there and the performance of Lester Martinez?
I was very impressed. I think he actually lived up to all the hype. There's been a lot of talk about him. We had him on our card a few months back. A couple of his fights fell through on our cards. We're supposed to have him back. When I saw him on our card, I wasn't super impressed. Yeah, I saw the power. I saw he's a strong guy. I didn't see a high-level boxing IQ. He looked like he was a little too easy to hit. This fight, totally different. And I know Carlos Góngora. I've called his fights before. He's a world-class guy. He's been in with some top-notch, top-flight guys. And he's gotten some wins in positions when he wasn't supposed to, even on short notice at times. So I was thoroughly impressed. I didn't think Lester had it in him like this. I kept saying prior to this fight, I'm like, listen, if he's any less than everyone's been saying, he's going to lose to Gongora, because Gongora is a very, very tough guy. And he showed that. He showed the toughness, but he had nothing for Lester. Every time he landed something, Lester came right back. Very, very impressed with the conditioning of Lester. You know, he had to go to distance this time. He had a guy who was super durable. He was like a rubber band in there, getting his head banged around all over the place and kept coming back. Super, super tough guy, Gongora, but that's how he is. And Billy beat him all over the ring and still almost got knocked out late by Gongora, because he's that type of guy. He had no shot with Lester. Lester was very much in control throughout, showed tremendous punching power, combinations, punch selection, durability, endurance. That was a big question for me. Punchers, I need to see punchers go late, because you're not going to be able to knock everybody out just like this.
Right.
He couldn't knock Gongora out. He tried, but he took the best shots possible, but he's able to do it and consistently keep it up. I was very impressed with Lester Martinez. I think he has a very bright future, which everyone's been saying, but now I see it.
Yeah, before this fight against Gongora, he had gone the distance once, 10 rounds, so showed that he definitely was in shape. All right, Paulie, what are your thoughts on that fight and the performance of Lester Martinez?
I tell you what, man, I was impressed. Gongora is typically a guy who's durable, and he showed that, but he's usually also very crafty. And I don't know if Gongora's had that beaten out of him, because again, I talked about before the fight how a guy like Gongora can become very, very frustrated, not getting the big fight, having to go to people's hometowns, home countries, dealing with decision losses, dealing with situations where he's put in positions to not win, and things of that nature. You got to keep that in mind, because Gongora sort of can be a bit used up. But at the same time, when you're the first guy to make Gongora look like this, when you're the first guy to really put it on him like this, it's still an impressive performance. I do feel for Gongora, because he never really was given this the right opportunity. And again, he wasn't. The opportunity here was he's coming in as the B side. He's coming in against the guy he's supposed to lose to, and it's a tough situation. But Lester lived up to the hype. Lester really, really brought that pressure, beat Gongora really from pillar to post like you've never seen before. The champ mentioned Mbili was sort of did some of that as well, but Mbili also was dropped by Gongora, and Gongora showed some of that craftiness in that fight. I'd love to see Lester and Mbili. I mean, I think that's a super fight. I mean, that is two trains colliding, and you really don't know who's going to win that fight if you match them together. I'd love to see that fight. Two guys with the same mentality. I actually think Lester may have a little bit more creativity than Mbili. I find Mbili to be a little bit one-dimensional, just with a lot of pressure. But it would be terrific fight. Both guys have this win over Gongora now. You can make that comparison. Again, I think Lester Martinez raised his stock a little bit over the weekend.
Yeah, I got to make a correction. Before this fight against Gongora, Martinez had gone the distance twice, 10 rounds. And obviously he won them both. So definitely showing that he has a finish level. Not at this level, for sure. All right. So what's next for Martinez? Paulie mentioned Mbili. I think that's a great fight. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's three guys in this weight class that kind of have a similar mentality. Jaime Munguia, Mbili, and Martinez. They're all just come forward, two-fisted guys, tons of pressure, explosive, big punchers, looking to knock you out, looking to beat you up. I like all three of those fights. There's a guy named Edgar Berlanga, who's another big puncher, picks his spots really well, obviously has big power. So there's a lot of really good fights, coming down the line for these guys. But listen, I mean, is it so crazy to think about a Canelo-Lester Martinez fight? We get Mexico versus Guatemala. I know listen, this kid's super popular. Super popular. Guys, we see the numbers behind these views. People tune in for Lester Martinez. Not only because obviously he's very exciting, but he's got a built-in fan base in the Guatemalan. He's supposed to be the best Guatemalan fighter who's ever lived. And he has that opportunity to be that guy, and he's right there. So
is he ready for Canelo though? That's the thing.
Is anyone ever ready for Canelo? By the time they get him, who's ready? You're never ready until you're ready, right? And you don't know until you find out. So as silly as that sounds, but. Listen, is he going to not take that fight? Of course not. He's going to take that fight. He's super young, and he hasn't been to that level yet. This was a big step-up fight, but listen, when the Canelo door opens, you take it because it's a huge opportunity. And listen, and Canelo's another guy. He's been around for a long time. When does he slip? When does Father Time take him down enough percentage points that the next guy beats him? Lester wants to be that guy. Edgar Berlanga wants to be that guy. Jaime Munguia tried to be that guy. Wasn't that guy yet. So. All of these guys are kind of in the same position. Everyone in and around the weight classes want that Canelo golden ticket because of the big money. But listen, one of these guys is going to beat him eventually. That's just how boxing works. So Lester Martinez, I'm sure, is looking at this like, I can be that guy. Give me that shot.
All right, Paulie, let me throw out this hypothetical here. How about Lester Martinez against David Benavidez? Because we all know that all of us want Benavidez to fight Canelo, but might not happen. maybe it's more logical, more realistic that it's Lester Martinez, Benavidez? What do you think?
I think Benavidez will probably be criticized if he takes on a Lester Martinez who's relatively untested. I'd love to see Martinez in big fights. He's got a fun style. I'd love to see him. Benavidez would get criticized. The Canelo blowhards would overtake the criticism, and they would actually praise Canelo fighting Lester Martinez. I don't see that Benavidez would take on Lester because there needs to be a little bit more notoriety there. That's why I like the Mbili fight. Both guys have a aggressive, fun style, but neither guy is the notoriety yet to really bring in a big fish to the ring, you know? So I think if they fight each other, the winner may have more notoriety because that would be a fight that would get hyped up a lot because they are in that prospect contender level at the moment. And both of them have that key win over Gongora, which is a guy who's been very crafty and has shown to be of a certain level. I don't see Benavidez and Martinez fighting. When it comes to Canelo, I mean, I don't know how you would justify it, honestly. I mean, Canelo would justify anything. He'll lie to your face and tell you he's never going to fight a Mexican. Then he fought a Mexican in his last fight. To avoid Benavidez, he'll go to all kinds of lengths, and the Bullhards will let him have it. Will let him get away with it. I don't know, though, if I really am honest, how you fight Lester Martinez if you're Canelo when you told us for years that Demetrius Andrade was not known enough, didn't have enough notoriety. I get that Lester Martinez might be the best fighter to ever come out of Guatemala. What does that even mean? I don't even know does that even mean anything? I mean, Guatemala is not exactly your boxing haven either, you know, but certainly he is a crafty, not even much crafty, but an aggressive, fun fighter to watch. And he may be the best fighter to ever come out of Guatemala. I certainly want to see him again. I want to see a lot of them. But if I'm realistic, I think the Mbili fight is the one you can really make because both guys sort of need each other. You know, they're both good. They're both guys who people want to see, but I don't know that they're a big enough deal to bring in the big fish. A win over, if they fight each other, that win for the winner might be the win necessary to maybe draw some of the bigger fish into the pot.
I'm going to put out a theory here, put out a scenario. Mbili, Martinez, and Munguia fight each other. Like eventually, you know, they have a little mini tournament, and then the fighter that comes out and wins.
Munguia has fought Canelo, and he's been a world champion. I'd like to see it stylistically as well, but Munguia has fought Canelo. Once you fought Canelo, you sort of enter a different realm. And, financially. And I don't know if you take on these kind of guys.
I'd like to sneak in Diego Pacheco. I think
Diego Pacheco, that's another one.
I'd like to sneak in.
I forgot that. That is a great idea.
Yeah, I like Pacheco. That's a nice young undefeated tournament.
Pacheco and Lester Martinez, all of that level where I think they have to fight each other. They need that big fish, and that big fish, they need each other to draw the big fish. And I think a win over the other, whichever one fights each other, may be enough to draw in the big fish.
Ooh, that should be a good one, Pacheco and Lester Martinez. All right, time for a quick break here on Big Fight Breakdown. We will continue our discussion here on ProBox TV. Thank you for joining us here on Big Fight Breakdown on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. All right, Chris, what were your thoughts overall of Friday night fights and then the victors, Lamont Roach and Lester Martinez?
It had a big fight feel, which was cool. Championship level, it's our first time ProBox TV. Not our first time, but this is the latest alliteration, especially these weight classes. And going on site, I was really fun. And I got to chop it up with a lot of the local fighters, a lot of local media as well. You know, at the weigh-in and the press conference, and the team camaraderie and the gym culture was very pervasive. And it bled into the fight, and we saw some of that talent be on display. And I think it was really necessary and needed in that area. There hasn't been, big-time championship boxing in there in a while. Lamont was able to, parade that ability and bring everyone in. And all of his gym mates, all of those guys who look up to him and are excited about, this opportunity, really took advantage of the time and the space and the ability and the eyes and our platform. So from my perspective, it was a lot of fun to be at that level on a ProBox TV show. It's definitely a step up from our other shows. Being on site was a whole different situation. And I think that at the end of the day, the product speaks for itself. It was a good night of fights. We had some great fights that everyone's accustomed to when they're watching the ProBox TV. But we're stepping up our level, and we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah. 7-0, DMV fighters 7-0 on Friday night fights. All right, Paulie, what were your impressions of the night overall on Friday night?
Tell you what, from a distance, ProBox TV's traveling, man. We know we bring you all the fights from Plant City, from the Tampa area, and everybody comes to us. Now we're starting to come to you. You know, we're starting to move around a little bit. I think I love the way ProBox TV is growing and bringing the same quality, if not the elevating quality, the continual growth of the network and the quality of fights. That was a World Championship event, and I look forward to the continued growth of the network. And I think for the fans, it's going to be a terrific watch to see this network grow and bring continuously better and better fights to you. And we're gonna start traveling soon again. You know, I think we're expanding, and I look forward to that part.
If we go to, can I volunteer for Rio de Janeiro? Just saying, if we have a fight in Rio de Janeiro, I am there. I don't care if I don't do anything.
Getting those miles. Who knows?
Yes.
Maybe Jonathan Cardoso. Who knows?
You never know. Robson Conceição, if he beats so Shaqy Foster. You
and
never
one
know.
more thing, Champ, we missed you on the call.
Yeah.
You know, for sure missed you on the call, but it was cool having Sean Porter on the call with us as well. He stepped in very last minute for the people at home. Paulie had an emergency to deal with, so he wasn't available with us. But Sean stepped in. It was great. My first time ever working with Sean, calling a fight, and it was a lot of fun. Sean's an excellent analyst.
Yeah, we got a team, man. You know, and that's what I mean. But also, you know, the guys stepping in. We got, you know, all kinds of guys that are interchangeable with terrific ability, and I think the fans appreciate that. We got championship level guys like yourself, Chris, myself, Tim. Teddy and Sean.
The champs got each other's backs. It's good.
The analysts really on this network, I think, something I believe people do appreciate on fight night. Maybe not so much on the talk shows all the time. I know you sometimes ridiculous, but certainly on fight night, it's fun to be able to sit back and watch guys do it. And the quality of fights never hurts. It always helps us out at ProBox TV. Guys just come out banging on this network.
Oh, and the studio hosts are pretty good too. I gotta say that. That does it for a big fight breakdown. You guys take care. Thank you for joining us here on ProBox TV.